The United States has just dropped one of the most explosive accusations against China in recent years. Secret nuclear tests conducted at the Lopnur site in the Xinjiang desert, which could be violating the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. And Donald Trump wasn't silent. According to recent statements, the US administration warned it would respond to any covert nuclear activity by Beijing. Are we talking about a calculated provocation or a real threat that could reconfigure the global nuclear balance? Because if this is true, look, the geopolitical chessboard has just changed in a way we haven't seen since the Cold War. If you want to understand a bit more about these topics, and much more about geopolitics, current events, politics, controversies, basically everything you need to stay well informed, then subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and share this video. Professor Mark Roberts really counts on your support. Alright? So let's jump into it. To understand what we're talking about, we need to lay out some context. The Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, known as the CTBT, was adopted by the UN General Assembly in 1996. That's almost 3 decades ago. The treaty prohibits any nuclear explosion, whether for military or civilian purposes, anywhere on the planet. Now here's the first problem. China signed the treaty but never ratified it. And neither did the United States, by the way, which means, technically, neither country is legally bound by that agreement. Keep an eye on this detail because it significantly changes the legal argument of the accusation. To give you an idea of how sensitive this issue is, since China conducted its last confirmed nuclear test in 1996, the world has been relatively calm in that regard. But in recent years, specifically since 2019, reports from the US State Department have pointed to low-intensity seismic activity in the Lopnur area that, according to American analysts, could be inconsistent with simple construction or maintenance work. We are talking about seismic events of magnitude between 2 and 3 on the Richter scale detected by the monitoring network of the CTBTO, the international organization that specifically oversees these things. Are they low-yield nuclear tests or simply underground construction? That's the crux of the problem. Now, what's happening at this moment is that the Trump administration significantly escalated its tone. According to reports from outlets like the Wall Street Journal and Reuters, US government officials stated that China had allegedly conducted at least a series of nuclear hydrodynamic tests, which are basically experiments that simulate detonation conditions without actually producing a full conventional explosion. Yes, it sounds complicated, but in plain language, these would be tests that allow for perfecting nuclear warhead designs without detonating the actual weapon. The problem is that, if true, this would represent a violation of the CTBT's spirit, even if not necessarily its letter, right? And here, a crucial disclaimer is in order. China categorically denied all these accusations. The spokesperson for Beijing's Ministry of Foreign Affairs declared that the US claims are completely false and called the State Department's report an instrument of pressure politics. Yes, China rejects everything, but the United States insists. Yes, there's a historical pattern of denial in these cases, but there are also precedents of covert activities that were later confirmed. The truth in cases like this is almost never entirely black or white. So, Professor, why would China want to do this now? Good question. Context matters a lot here. China has been rapidly expanding its nuclear arsenal. According to Pentagon estimates published in 2024, Beijing could have more than 500 operational nuclear warheads, with plans to reach 1 Uro-Eron warheads by 2030. To put that in perspective, in 2020, China was estimated to have just 320 nuclear warheads. That's a growth of more than 50% in less than 5 years. This is an unprecedented expansion in modern times. And modernizing an arsenal at that pace, apparently, requires validating designs in some way. Another important point is that this accusation doesn't come in a political vacuum. Tensions between Washington and Beijing are at one of their highest points since diplomatic recognition in 1979. The trade war, the Taiwan issue, technological competition, and now this. It's worth noting that the timing of Trump's declaration isn't innocent either. In a context of tariff negotiations and pressure on multiple fronts, playing the nuclear card has a deterrent and diplomatic pressure effect that goes far beyond the technical issue itself. The problem is that if the United States pushes too hard on this point, China could respond by completely withdrawing from arms control dialogues, which are already very fragile. Currently, there is no bilateral treaty between the US and China that limits their nuclear arsenals, unlike what existed between Washington and Moscow for decades. Meaning, there's no Sino-American New START, no mutual inspections, no verification mechanisms. That, look, is a huge gap in the global security architecture. And what does Russia say about all this? Well, Moscow observes with calculated attention. Russia has its own arsenal of approximately 580 nuclear warheads, the largest in the world, and any escalation in the arms race between China and the US also changes its relative position. It could be that this situation ends up bringing Moscow and Beijing closer in their common narrative against Washington, something we've already been seeing since the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. And here's the most unsettling detail of all. If the accusations are true and China is indeed perfecting its nuclear weapons with covert tests, what prevents other countries from using the same argument to justify their own programs? Iran is watching, North Korea is watching, and several regional players are too. The domino effect of a breakdown in the non-proliferation regime could be, without exaggeration, one of the greatest security challenges of the 21st century. So, are we really on the brink of a new nuclear escalation between the two superpowers of the 21st century? I confess I don't have a clear answer, and I don't think anyone does right now. What does seem evident is that the global arms control regime is more fragile than at any point since the end of the Cold War. Is this accusation the beginning of new tactical pressure from Washington, or the symptom of something much deeper with no turning back? Leave it in the comments. I want to know your opinion. Otherwise, if you liked the video, we're in this together.